All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I'm your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. It's Friday night, at least for some of us in America and in North America. It is Saturday for those of you who are over on the other side of the world, on the other side of the prime meridian, like the people in Australia, like Rick, who is getting his coffee because he was sleeping in, right? Let me turn this banner off over here so you guys can see me, right? Still all of one. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Fantasy Island. Okay, so we ended the session last week, and we're going to start the new session this week, which you see is February 23rd, 1981. We haven't even gotten out of 1981 yet. It's kind of crazy, right? I don't remember which one we're on, 33, 34, 35, 110, I don't know. Right, I got the right one up. I just don't remember what session it is. I know that there's 33 questions in this session, so I don't know that we'll get through the entire thing today, but we'll see, right? So welcome. Let me go back to the comments so I can see what you guys are saying. Denise, welcome. I see that Denise is here. Rick made it. Got your coffee. Good. No milk, but you got your coffee, right, Rick? He was out of milk, he said in the chat, right? So welcome, guys. Share this out, right? Yeah, right. So yeah, share this out, guys. I shared it out in a couple places this time because I had enough time to do that. I wasn't running late today. I should have been, but I wasn't. Okay, so we're gonna start with that. I'm not gonna talk about like current affairs. A lot of times I pop in with current affairs before I do a session, but I'm not gonna do that because the session itself will spawn enough of that discussion, right? So, pardon me. So yeah, share this out, and we'll just go ahead and start. I'll do a sound check. Get the other people who are normally here, tag them, get them in here. What the heck? Where are they? Right? They're late. Right? Get them in here. So let me do a sound check, and you guys let me know if you guys can hear it okay. And then if not, I'll turn it up. And hopefully my sound's doing okay, because sometimes it defaults when I plug in this camera. Because now my computer's stuck again on Zoom. Even when I was trying to be on Zoom, it wasn't letting me. So I don't know if I have to restart it or what I have to do, but I think I have to restart. I think that's what happened last time when I restarted. It turns it off, but I got this camera on here, but sometimes it defaults to that microphone, and I checked it just before I went live, and it's not. It's on the microphone here, so it should sound better than if it was over there. You would know because I sound like I'm a long ways away because that camera is like 3 feet away from me, or maybe even more than that, maybe 4 feet. Welcome, Peter. Welcome, Cassie. Like I said, tag people, get them in here who are supposed to be here, right? So I'm going to do a sound check, like I said, and we'll get started. Let me know if you guys can hear raw okay, if I need to turn it up or not, all right?
February 23rd, 1981. 29.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. 29.1 Questioner. Is our sun, this planetary system, as we know it, a sublogos or the physical manifestation of a sublogos? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct.
Actually, I think we did this one. I think I might have programmed the wrong thing. I'm going to have to look because this sounds familiar, guys. I think we did this already. I think I'm past this. Hold on. I'm going to go and look. I apologize if that's the case because I thought it seemed weird, but I thought that that's where we were. And you know what? I just realized what I did wrong. So this is the wrong actual lesson because it is. We should be on 35, and I put up like 29. Right? What is this? And now we have, what is this? Now Microsoft's trying to do something. Are they trying to do an upgrade here? I don't know. now I got Microsoft doing something weird. So we actually have the wrong one. So I'm going to pull up the right one. But the problem is it's not going to say raw because I don't have time to fix all that. So it's going to say RA instead of raw because it'll take me like 10 minutes. But I just realized that what I did was I saw that the 28 audio, I went to lesson 28, and we're actually on lesson 35. So I apologize for that. Give me a second to pull up the program here to process it really quickly. But he's not going to be saying RA because that'll take me too long to do. So you guys are just going to have to get used to the idea that he's going to say, or he's not going to say raw. He's going to say I am RA, okay? So I apologize for that. But something told me there was something wrong with what I was doing. And I'm like, why does it seem like it's not the right session? My instinct said that. And I was like, no, I guess it's the right one. And then as soon as he started speaking, I'm like, he's talking about the sun. Wait a minute. That was a long time ago. That's not what we're supposed to be on. So hold on, I'm making the file, and then I'll share this file and share the other one. I apologize for that. But like I said, it's now not going to be saying I am raw. It's going to be saying I am RA. So I apologize for that. Let me unshare this program, and I'll pull up the other one. I apologize for that. That was weird. Something told me it was wrong. As soon as I heard him speak, I'm like, there we go. That's wrong right there. Now, I think this is the right one in the right order. We will see if it's not.
February 24th, 1981. 30.0 raw. I am raw.
Okay, so that says 30. So where did the one go that I just did? Oh, here it is. Sorry. My bad. I didn't scroll down far
March
enough.
6th, 1981.
This one's better.
35.0.
Okay, so we're on session 35. Let me share this. I don't know if you guys could hear that. I'll do a sound check once I do that. I do apologize for that. Something told me it was wrong, and I just went, no, that looks right to him until I heard what he was talking about. It's a good thing I have a good memory, right? Okay, so now the right one's up. I'm going to do a sound check again. Right? I apologize, guys. I'm going to do a sound check again, but now, right, so now it's not going to say I am raw. He's going to say I am RA. Just deal with that for this week. I'll fix it for next week, okay? So here's a sound check for this session. We're at March 6th of 1981.
March 6th, 1981. 35.0 RA. I am RA. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator.
I know, Peter, I'm growing it back. Peter said, you look different. Leonard, back to your childhood. No beard. No, I'm going to grow it back. I shaved it off just before Christmas. I've been regretting it ever since. I spent 90 days growing it. I've regretted it ever since. I know it makes me look like 20 or 30 years younger. But I just have been regretting it. And I actually haven't shaved in about 2 days, 3 days now. So you can't see that probably because I'm just washed out with the white light. But know that I'm growing it back. I realized that when I shaved it, it was in the morning when I first woke up. And that's when my ego is just screaming negativity at me. Everything it can scream at me. At first, is yelling how great I am at everything. And then I go, yeah, right, knock that off. And then all of a sudden, it's just negative stuff like, oh, my God, you have this to do, and you have that to do, and you have this to do, and you have that to do. And what about this, and what about that? And your mom this, and your mom that, and everybody in your family this and that, the world this and that. And that happens usually while I'm in the restroom on the toilet. And that's when I was like, oh, my God, my beard makes me look 400 years old. I need to shave it off. I can't believe that if I'm going to be talking in front of people, I should be looking younger. And I went and shaved it off now almost a month ago when I shaved it off. And I was thinking I'm going to let my beard grow. And when I woke up this morning and went into the bathroom, my ego was screaming at me, no, you need to shave before the show today. You need to shave. And so I realized then if my ego is telling me I need to get rid of my beard, that means I need to have my beard. Whatever my ego says, I usually try and do the opposite unless my ego is just telling me, normal things to think about. But if it's saying you're the greatest in the world, I go, okay, ignore that. You need to shave. You can't have a beard. Ignore that. So Peter, just so you know, I'm going to grow it back. You kind of inspired me because something you just sent me was a picture of yourself or a video of you now, and you had your full beard. And I was like, look at that. Peter's got his beard. So literally I've been thinking I'm going to grow it back. And every morning when I wake up, my ego is telling me, quick, get a shave, get in to shave. You need to shave. You need to shave. You can't have a beard. You got to shave. If you have a beard, people are going to look at you and they're going to think you're old or you're a homeless guy. You need to shave. So I decided, you know what? I really don't care about that at all. Because my ego is telling me shave it. So I'm not going to. So now I'm growing it back. It'll take me a while to get it back. But you're right. I look totally different, right? People who know me from having the beard go, wow, what happened? People who've seen me without the beard and then see me with the beard, they usually go the opposite. But then when I shave it off, they go, what? Even Jacqueline, I shaved it off. She was like, oh my God, look, you look so thin. I'm like, well, yeah, when you don't have a beard that's this thick on your face, it makes you look thin, right? And the last time if anybody saw me when I didn't have a beard was 4 months ago now, right? So people don't remember that. So yeah, I'm growing it back. I know you guys out there listening on the MP3 file, you can't hear that. You can't see that. You can hear that, but you can't see that. Okay, so nobody gave me any clue. Let me scroll back up, put my glasses on. Nobody told me whether you guys could hear raw. And and whether or not you could hear it okay. So I'm going to play it again. Let me rewind. I'm going to play it again here, and you guys tell me if you can hear it at all, because you guys didn't even answer. So I don't even know if you guys can hear it.
March 6th,
I'd have to go back and actually listen to the live video to find out.
IMRA.
So hopefully you guys can hear that, and I don't have to turn the sound
up. Of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 35.1 Questioner. I would like to say that we consider this a great privilege to be doing this work and hope that we are going to question in a direction that will be of value to the readers of this material.
Okay. Before you couldn't, because I had didn't share it to the screen yet. So I'm going to rewind it so we can hear that question, because I wasn't paying attention to it either. Before I didn't have it up so you guys could hear it. So I did, but I also wanted to make sure that that you guys could hear it. Okay. So welcome, Cody, by the way. Anybody that I didn't say welcome to, it's because you didn't say anything in the chat and I haven't seen you here. If you guys are listening on the MP3 file, you guys don't have access yet. I'm working on that, sharing it. What I might do is go live on the MP3 file and share that over, and then I'll have to monitor that chat. But I'm trying to get it moved into here, because Zoom doesn't do that, and neither does StreamYard, where you can process that. But the Spreaker, or the other name for that company, which I have an account with, they do, I believe. So I'm going to go look there and see. And I think Podbean does as well. So I may go live on Podbean, stream that because that's the same company, or Anchor FM is the same company. Podbean is their own company. But I may go live on one of those two platforms, because I'm now Anchor FM allows video. So Spreaker and the parent company that allows video. So I may go live with them and then stream that. I'll see. I'm going to start working on that and then stream it. I could stream it through StreamYard so go live MP3 where I can have the chat in there, and then stream it on StreamYard, and then just go to StreamYard and watch the chat. We'll see. I'm working on that. It's annoying that they don't have that set up to where you can do that everywhere. Some companies allow you to stream like 3 or 4 places, but they don't allow you to go MP3 and MP4. And then some allow that, but then you can't share that to the other places, or all the chats don't come into that thing. Well, so the companies are working on that. They know that those of us who do this kind of stuff are harping about being able to broadcast on both channels at the same time, MP4 video and MP3. But if I have to, I'll just go to MP3 and do it that way, because there's nothing really for you guys to see anyways, except, because I'm not using a program that shows you the words to read along on the screen. You just see my face. So that won't be a thing anymore, because you won't be able to see my face unless you tune in. And that's why the companies are starting to go to where we can do that. But then I converted to that. Most of you that are already listening to me on an MP3 file, you've never seen me unless you go to my homepage on Facebook or on the show to find out what I look like anyways. So you guys probably won't mind, but I'll bet you there's a lot of you out there in the world who would love to listen in live and be able to ask questions in a chat. That I'm aware of, because I keep getting that from people around the world. And I'm in more countries than I was before. I've been listening to in 70 countries. I just looked it up, and I have at least 6 or 7 new countries that I didn't have before. So I'm very proud of that. So I'm up to almost 80 countries in the world that tune in. So I love you guys around the world. I am paying attention. I know when you guys do that, I track that. I literally go from platform to platform and find out where my audience is and the demographic. I do pay attention to that stuff. I don't talk about it as much as I used to, but I do pay attention to all you guys. Like Germany, you guys went from like 1 or 2 people in that country to many. The same thing with Sweden. The same thing with even Norway. There's a lot of you out there that are actually listening to me over there, and the Czech countries, the Baltic states. I was surprised at that. The Baltic states, that's cool. And people in Africa, not just South Africa, which I thought was going to be the only people that would tune me in. But there's a lot of people that are starting to pick me up in South America and Africa as well, which is really cool. Not just Americas and Europe, but now I'm starting to be picked up in a lot of other countries. So I'm happy with that. And I believe that if I go live, I will pick up even more people around the world. Right now, I only go live on X, or Twitter, whatever you guys want to call it, YouTube and Facebook. So I'm trying to go live on other places as well. Rebecca, welcome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I know, and you're in New Zealand, right? right? So yeah, I was not trying to forget to mention that, because now I've had people listen to me in all of the territories in Australia, but except for weirdly not in the northern Australia, Northern Territory, in the last 3 months, which is bizarre. But then Tasmania, New Zealand, and around that area, everybody in that cluster down under are actually listening to me. So thank you for that and sharing it out down there for those people. Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start this, like I said, start it over, and we'll get into this session. Okay, so let's do that.
March 6th, 1981. 35.0 RA. I am RA. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 35.1 Questioner. I would like to say that we consider this a great privilege to be doing this work, and hope that we are going to question in a direction that will be of value to the readers of this material. This session, I thought that possibly inspecting the effect on the rays of different well-known figures in our history might be help in understanding how the catalyst of the illusion creates spiritual growth. I was making a list here, and the first I thought we might possibly hit the high points on as to the effect of catalyst of the individual's working life would be the one we know as Franklin D. Roosevelt. Could you say something about that entity? RA. I am RA. It is to be noted that in discussing those who are well known among your peoples, there is the possibility that information may be seen to be specific to one entity, whereas in actuality the great design of experience is much the same for each entity. It is with this in mind that we would discuss the experiential forces which offered catalyst to an individual.
See, this is why a lot of us try to stay non-denominational in our information, because the second you say things like, I just posted something last night that if you stay tuned and go to the third image in my reel, you see that there's actually a quote from the Western Judeo-Christian Bible at the end. It gives you the place where that quote came from. I don't normally do that, but in the message that I was putting out last night in my reel, I decided to go ahead and leave that in. I try to stay away from any one religion, but you can't talk about spirituality and talk about people here delivering that without saying their name. And when you do, that associates with a religion of wherever that person was. And that's part of the unfortunate thing with things that became religions, because most of the people that are quoted, like Jesus, like Mohammed, like the Buddha, like Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, most those all specifically were never intending for their knowledge to become a religion whatsoever. A way of practicing, a way of ascension, yes. And most of the people throughout time who did that and talked about anything to help people ascend never intended for that to become a religion in any way, but it has. So now what you have is that religious fervor, where you have people that immediately, because of the programming here, pick a side and have to fight and have to say, our religion is right, yours, all the rest are wrong. And all religions claim that. I have yet to hear or find any religion on the planet that doesn't say we're the right one and they're all wrong. Okay, so they all say the other one's wrong, right? And they all say, oh, we're the only ones that are right. Those are all fake. So the problem with that is it's exactly been corrupted, include the way that politics is corrupted, the way business is corrupted, the way the competition has been corrupted for financial gain. So it's hard for us to talk about spirituality, because even the terms that we use, we have to say, you hear people saying source energy, or the universe, because we can't say God anymore, because there's people who just don't believe in God that are also the concept that are spiritual. And it's in a weird way, because they look at the Western Judeo, say Christian version of a God because of the way that the religions are corrupted, as this male with a big beard sitting on a throne on some mountaintop overlooking this other one that has horns and a pitchfork that is sitting on another mountaintop, and that the world is some sort of chess or checkers board that they're vying for the control of the human race, because that is what the religions conjure up in your ideology as to what's actually going on. And that's actually wrong in every way. There is nothing about that is right. None of it. Okay, so they're all set up that way, geared toward this caste system, this hierarchy of one God, and there is only one God, and insert where I want to get into a fight by naming the person that I'm going to call as their prophet, because everybody in every religion, especially the ones that are based on Judaism, come from the same religion. And the Hebrew Bible claims that everybody else was created, yet we know that the Hebrew Bible is based on the Mesopotamian Bible or scrolls. Okay, so the Hebrew scrolls are not, in fact, the creation of the God story. Okay, they borrowed that from at least the Mesopotamians, and the Mesopotamians claim they borrowed it from the Greeks, and the Greeks claim they borrowed it from the Egyptians, and the Egyptians claim they borrowed it from somebody that was even older. Okay, so the truth is, and this is where you get people that get stuck because of their race, people that are Africans say, we started the entire thing because we were the first ones who knew about God. No, because if you go back far enough and you look at the Cobran Bible, which are scrolls that came out of that the Scots have, that came out of Egypt during the Exodus, those priests who were Egyptian priests claim that everything that they have, that is the Corpus Hermeticus or Hermeticum, which is the Greek version of the Bible that is no longer exists, that the Egyptians had, which we call the Hermes Bible, or the Hermetic texts. The most ancient text is a Greek version of it called the Corpus Hermeticus or Hermeticum, Corpus Hermeticum, which is the body of Hermes. Okay, the knowledge of Hermes. That's their version, their copy into Greek, which has been now translated into Latin and then English for you to listen to. That is not the Hermetic text. The Hermetic text is something that's been tampered with. You have to be careful of that. In Google is now and YouTube is now tagging. So when you go to look at the Hermetica, it warns you that this is not the actual text, that if you actually want to read the actual text, you have to go to the Corpus Hermeticum, and that's the actual text that is the most ancient. So literally that's more, the Mesopotamian Bible was based on an Akkadian scroll. Arcadia is named after the city of Arcadia, the city-state in Greece, because they were Greeks. So the truth is that the Mesopotamian scroll isn't the oldest one. It's claimed to be 1,100 years older, a scroll it was a Greek scroll. When you go to the Greeks and you study that scroll, they say, yeah, this is the Corpus Hermeticum, and we got this from the Egyptians. So then when you go back to the Egyptians, those scrolls still exist in Scotland today, and the Egyptians have it over in Africa, and they'll tell you the same thing. This is from a society that was here prior to. So they're talking about pre-dynastic, not post-dynastic Egyptian spirituality. So that scrolls are not like another 1,000 years old. They're quite possibly 75,000 years old, possibly one of the religions from one of the ancient societies that we're now just discovering. Okay, so the point of this is what Ra is telling you right here is that this information that has been handed down to all of these people is the same information that you guys out there, me, you, and everybody else, can actually access as we start to ascend. So they're saying that they don't want to talk about an individual in this environment with the sessions that they're talking about, because it will then bring up in the minds of people who are the readers, or the people like now that I'm talking to, of a certain religion, thinking I'm pushing that religion. Because you can't discuss any information that you get from the Akashic records without doing that. It's unfortunate, because I can tell you what I get from there. But usually what happens is, as I start talking, or anyone else like me that has knowledge starts talking, people say, where do you get this from? And then if you say the Akashic records or the halls of Amente, they're like, okay, so you're crazy. So do you have any proof of that? Then you have to give reference. Okay, well, let's talk about all these people and all these religions that knew the same information that I know. Well, you probably just read those, and that's what you're regurgitating. So you're not telling us anything new. There is nothing new. There is nothing new. There is only what there is, and that is what is. Okay? So it's not like that it's evolving. What's evolving is the experience and how to experience that, and then the compilation of what we can learn. That's what evolves. The actual knowledge of the universe is simple, and everybody expects it to be this something that is crazy. Yet, when people who know it start talking, they say that's crazy. What you're expecting from the universe, like Revelations, is that Revelations is something crazy about the end of the world. It is and it's not, and I can tell you. And when I do, you go, well, that's just crazy. But you're expecting that Revelation is something crazy. So then when you hear something crazy, you go, that nope, that's not the information. How do you know that? How do you know that? Well, because if you knew it, here's the ego. If you knew it, then I, of course, would know it, and someone else would. There are millions, quite possibly billions of humans that currently know the answers. It's just when they tell you, you either see it for the truth, or you believe that it's a lie, or you think that they're crazy until you know the information yourself. Okay? We're aware of that. The only thing I can do, going back, okay, we're looking 5,000 years ago now, or 3,500 years to 5,000 years ago, when Socrates said that he knew the exact same thing. First of all, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything. Secondly, I cannot teach or convince any human being of anything. The only thing I can do is get them to start thinking for themselves. That is the knowledge that you gain, is literally no one is going to believe it until they start learning it themselves. And then they start going, are you aware that this, did you know that? And then as they start asking that questions, a lot of people don't know the answers. And then you start finding people that go, yes, and this. And they're like, yeah, I hadn't thought about that yet, but you're right. Well, what about this? Yes, and this. And then they go, wow, so you know what? Yes. And then they start learning it on their own, not because you said it, not because it's written in a book somewhere. Okay. They start accessing the actual information that's there. But here's the thing. You have an entire group, 14% of the population of this earth currently, 14%, that cannot access that information. Therefore, that 14%, which controls 98% of all media worldwide, will say that you're fake, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're lying, you're trying to make money, and they will accuse you of trying to do everything that they are actually doing in this world. That you're out for money, power, fame, glory, and that you're making this up because you're trying to control people and you're crazy and you're a cult and you're just trying to take over the world. That is exactly their agenda. But they're going to claim that you did it, that you're doing that, because they cannot access what you're accessing and they don't want anyone to think about what you're talking about. Some people get information and they get it kind of wrong. That's normal too, and it's okay. Okay? It is. So Raw here is showing, and then we'll get back to Raw. Raw here is showing that literally if you mention some name from somebody that is of a certain religion, all these people that are going to be triggered on a lower level vibration are going to be triggered and go, oh, you're one of those Christians. Oh, you're a Jew. Oh, you're a Muslim. And because think about what literally is being talked about daily on the planet, especially now. Dissension, separation, fear of the other. Okay, so if I'm a Christian, I'm supposed to be afraid of the Muslims. And if I'm a Muslim, I'm supposed to hate the Jews. And if I'm a Jew, I'm supposed to hate the Christians because their religion was just created by Romans to control the population. That is what they're teaching you. The religions themselves are teaching you that. Why? Because they're Starbucks. They have a synagogue, a church, whatever you call that, worship place on every corner, and they need customers, repeat customers. So therefore, they go, don't go over to that one across the street. Those guys are crazy, and they'll rape your children and bugger your little boys, and they're going to charge you 10% of all of the money that you get. They're going to lie to you because it's just made up. And when you go over there, they're going to say the same thing about the people across the street. Why? Because the agenda of the corporation, that is that religion, wants to conquer the planet and be the biggest and the best Starbucks, Taco Bell, Walmart, whatever you have in your country, McDonald's, They're no different. The mindset of the people at the top they're running that as a business. And if they didn't, and they don't have it on the stock market because of being a religion, they get to be a nonprofit, which they're all very rich for somebody who's in a nonprofit, right? The Pope walks around in a garment that costs more than $1 million. Not joking. Okay, way more. All right, so this is the problem that we have, those of us who are awake, to try and stay away from. And a lot of people don't, and they'll say the word God instead of source or the universe. They'll say the word God, and that turns off a lot of people unless that they're Western Judeo-Christian, right? So the Christianity, Muslim, or Hebrew, they all use the term God, one God in the universe. Those people will listen, but then other people from other or non-denominational doesn't want to have anything to do with it because they don't like the organization of churches. Not that they're not spiritual. They don't want to hear that because they see it as politics. They see it as the same. If you're pushing a religion, they see it as a business that's getting into your business and coming knocking on your door and going, have you heard the good word? Here's a pamphlet for you to read. We need to come into your house and have a prayer. And while we're doing that, we're going to try and recruit you to go and defend the Star League against Zur and the Kodan Armada. Or we're going to send you to a poor country because we want you to go and do a walkabout and bring more people in. The first thing most of these religions do is recruit you to go recruit people. And that's what cults do. Why? Because they want more people. Not because they claim, well, no, we're just trying to spread the good word. Well, if you were, then why don't you have a commercial on television? Then why aren't you giving away that stuff for anybody who wants to get it for free? They can just go to the website and have it shipped to their house. Because you need guidance. Because we want your money. We don't want to give you something for free. We're losing money if we're just handing out our Bible and our book. We need you to come to our church and sit down so when we pass around the money tray, you put money in it. And then if you're going to go to the church, we're going to charge you a tithing. Most of the churches are now starting to get away from that over here in the Western culture because people were like, I'm not paying you money. If you want to tell me what's going on, I'll come and sit here for free and listen. So now they're getting their money from other things. They're doing commercials and websites and apps so they can charge and get money that way to pay for everything. And then they get donations from people that are their patrons. So they've gone back to, well, we'll just subsist off what we can get. But they also know that the bigger reach they have, the more money they can pull in. So that's why they can try to expand. Business-minded, not spiritual-minded, not ascension-minded. Okay, so we have to stay away from saying those words because we offend everybody. Not that we're not. I have 4 titles and 4 different religions. Okay, so which one would I pick? I don't pick any of them, but sometimes I refer to these people, and some people go, there he goes talking Christianity because he said the word Jesus. That's like saying Trump. Half of the United States gets triggered into I must be their enemy because I said the word Trump. Do you see? And then if I don't say the word Trump, and if I say Biden, the other half of the country hates me because now I've chosen their enemy. Do you see? And the whole purpose of this is that you're supposed to realize that that is the enemy. All right, let's continue.
It is further to be noted that in the case of those entities lately incarnate upon your plane, much distortion may have taken place in regard to misinformation and misinterpretation of an entity's thoughts or behaviors. We shall now proceed to, shall we say, speak of the basic parameters of the one known as Franklin. When any entity comes into third density incarnation, each of its energy centers is potentiated but must be activated by the self-using experience.
Right? Peter GV just popped in and he said some of the best Christians are spiritual people. Agreed. That's the problem, is that there are so many people in all of these religions who are very good spiritualists who are trying to teach that. But the corporations at the top of all of these churches, unfortunately, have been corrupted by the same people who are running corporations all over the world and governments. So I agree with you. There's so many people that are trying to help just around the world. But it's unfortunate that you either have to pick the genre and then peddle their wares, because if I'm going to be a Christian evangelical or priest, I now have to sell their product. So I can't go in and not talk about Jesus if I'm going to be in a church as a Christian, because Jesus is the product that you're selling. So I can't talk about spirituality that is non-denominational unless I tell people that this Christian church is a non-denominational church. And then the people who want to hear about this Jesus character are not going to like being there because I don't say the name enough. Do you see? So they've separated. This is what it means when they say everybody's speaking in tongue. They're like, oh, well, that's just all the foreign languages that everybody speaks, so that way no one understands each other. The truth is that humans have a way of communicating with each other no matter what language they use. And we can always, and most of the European languages are all based on the same three languages. All of the European languages, including English, are all based on Greek, Latin, and the Viking Svenska, or the Norwegian before that. The literally English alphabet is literally the Viking Futhark. They just took the sharp corners off of most of the letters except for the K, and they just made them smooth, but otherwise they are the letters. Okay, so literally the English language is Spanish or Castilian, which is Latin. It's a Latin language that has evolved from the Romans. Greek, right? It mixed in with that Viking. All of the languages there are, you could see, I'm teaching myself all those languages anyway. So I can literally, you can see how they go from country to country, and how as they move south in Northern Europe from the Norse language, how they move as they move closer to Rome and Greece, how the language evolves closer to those languages until they become those. And then when you get to the English-speaking people in England, say, right, and then everybody who's gone off from Australia, America, Canada, off from that, you can see how it evolved to that language. And then if you know language and you are a linguist and you look at Middle English and Old English, you see that Old English was very similar to Latin and the Castilian Spanish mixed together. It sounded more like Portuguese today. And Portuguese is very Latin-based Castilian Spanish. Okay. So literally we evolved that way, and so do the religions, is why I'm telling you this. So if you look at the religions, they evolve the same way as they move across the world. You have parts that are borrowed from other ideologies that all of a sudden start fitting in, and it goes backwards further in time back to the source root, and then that goes to another source root, and these people admitted it. They don't say, there's still no one that we found of any religion on this earth, no matter how far back you go, that claims that they were the ones. It was the Hebrews, the first one that was saying, well, Moses talked to God, and that was when all this was revealed to us, which is untrue. And everyone knows that, because they're all the rest of their book, except for that particular story, comes from an older story, which goes back further and further and further and further. Okay? So the point of that is, everyone says, well, we got to find the oldest one to find the truth. No, the point of all of that is that they're all the same knowledge that these people throughout time and history were gaining access to and then saying to people, and people were writing that down. Jesus spoke, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote it down. Jesus did stuff, and they followed him around and wrote it all down. And then they passed that on to people, and that became a religion. Jesus didn't want it to become a religion. He wanted it to become a way to practice, to ascend through the knowledge. The same with the Buddha, the same with the Tao, everything. It's the same with Hermes, right? The Hermetica. None of that were they going, this is a religion sent by God that you guys need to write down and practice. It was, this is the way of life to ascend. This is what you need to do to ascend. It wasn't supposed to become an orthodox religion in any way. It was supposed to be personal to every single person. All right, let's continue.
The one known as Franklin developed very quickly up through red, orange, yellow, and green, and began to work in the Blu-ray Energy Center at a tender age, as you would say. This rapid growth was due, firstly, to previous achievements in the activation of these rays, secondly, to the relative comfort and leisure of its early existence, thirdly, due to the strong desire upon the part of the entity to progress. This entity mated with an entity whose Blu-ray vibrations were of a strength more than equal to its own, thus acquiring catalyst for further growth in that area that was to persist throughout the incarnation. This entity had some difficulty with continued green ray activity due to the excessive energy which was put into the activities regarding other selves in the distortion towards acquiring power. This was to have its toll upon the physical vehicle, as you may call it. The limitation of the non-movement of a portion of the physical vehicle opened once again, for this entity, the opportunity for concentration upon the more, shall we say, universal or idealistic aspects of power, that is, the non-abusive use of power. Thus at the outset of a bellicose action this entity had lost some positive polarity due to excessive use of the orange and yellow ray energies at the expense of green and blue ray energies, then had regained the polarity due to the catalytic effects of a painful limitation upon the physical complex.
Okay, see, now here's an example of a person who was ascending and moving up into the higher three chakras, but then blocked himself and was lowered back down because of using being focused here in the third dimension using the orange and the yellow ray chakras. Okay, this is very easy to do if you're not paying attention. Okay, so anyone who's ascending, you're constantly being pulled down by this place, by your own ego, by the external egos. And even so, if you're not paying attention, you can go from being literally up in the three higher chakras above the green chakra and from the green up instead of from the green down. And it doesn't take much. This is why you have opposition that is constantly trying to pull you back down, that you can literally be thinking I'm doing well and I'm literally ascending, and then something happened and you're not aware of it, and you can then block yourself and start moving down. Usually those people start becoming aware of it because they start realizing they don't have the access they had, and they start realizing that they've been focusing too much on life. Right? Oh no, I've been focusing too much on life and I'm obsessed with it. What's going on? Because you moved back down. And all of a sudden you're obsessed with what is going on, who's doing what. And like he was saying, the bellicose action, meaning violence in some way, anger, fear, or physical violence of getting in a fight with somebody or whatever, that they got pulled back down and they stayed there. This happens. Okay. People do it. So you have to be aware of what you're doing at all times if you want to stay there. It's a work in progress. The reason that you meditate and that we tell you what you're meditating, because you're trying to achieve that place of being present above, as you, above the reach of the ego and the thinking mind. In that place of peace where they can't reach you, you're supposed to be rising yourself up constantly to that. Ra talked about that. No, I apologize. That was in, I think it was the Book of Truth. One of the Dead Sea Scrolls talked about that, how you have to concentrate and wriggle as hard as you can your soul to keep it up there. And it literally says that you have to literally wriggle your soul to hold it up there to keep it from moving back down. And that was their way, 5,000 years ago of explaining that you literally have to pay attention and act as if your life depends on it or your soul depends on it. Your clairvoyance, your access to the Akashic records, your ascension does. It's not an easy thing. This place thinks it's real. Okay, your ego thinks it's real. Your mind thinks it's real. Everything about this place is designed to think it's real because it doesn't know the difference. It's not conscious. It's not sentient. Okay, your mind isn't sentient. It just does it runs your body and it does what it's told. The words that you think in your head are either controlled by you as the observer or your ego, because your ego is designed to do those things, either put fear into your mind or make you believe that you're the greatest in the world, that you are the God and you are the Savior and you are the Christ or whatever, and that you're the best at it. I'm the greatest in the world. I'm Muhammad Ali. I'm a bad man. I'm the greatest in the world. Now, I'm not saying that that's wrong, because to be successful in the physical, you have to have a big ego. Those people know they have a big ego. They are exclusively living in 3D, and they have an overinflated ego, and they're being that way on purpose. They're aware of it, and they're doing it on purpose. Okay? They're not trying to become enlightened. When they start becoming enlightened, they start pulling back from all of this stardom. Right? Look at what's his name that was in Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey started becoming enlightened, and he pulled away from Hollywood, pulled away from all of that. First, he made a joke about everything, and And then he started talking about ascension, and then everybody thought he was crazy and said he was crazy, and then he just pulled away from them all. And every now and then he pops back up to stay a little bit relevant, but he doesn't care. He pulls away. Rick Moranis was another one. Rick Moranis made a lot of money, was a very funny comedian from Canada, and had a bunch of money. And after he did Ghostbusters and a couple other things, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and he was just like, I don't need any more money. I got plenty of money. I don't have. They're like, what are you, crazy? We want to have you make a bunch of more movies while you're still relevant. He's like, I don't care. The only person that got him out of mothballs was what's his name, who's also Canadian actor, director, writer, producer, owner now of Mint Mobile. Got him to come into a spot, which was funny, as a commercial for Mint Mobile. That was great that he got him to do that, to come out, right? That was good respect for Rick Moranis, and from Rick Moranis to come out and do that. I thought that was incredible for when they did that. I was like, man, you got Rick Moranis to come as your countryman and do that commercial. That was badass, okay? So the point is, yeah, right? Cassie said, yeah, true story about Jim Carrey. So when they asked Jim Carrey, what do you do? He says, I paint. It's my passion, right? So he's literally pulled back, and he doesn't care because he's got a lot of money. He made a ton of money in the 25, 30 years that he was working his butt off making a bunch of movies. And whenever the movies are played, he gets paid. So he's got royalties coming in. He's got a ton of money. He doesn't need to conquer the world. He doesn't have to have $1 billion in the bank. And because he has become enlightened, and now he's literally, the last thing I saw, people were talking, and he was like, talking outside of himself. This construct is Jim Carrey, and who is Jim Carrey? I am not Jim Carrey, and that's like what they played in the Fight Club. I am Jax Colin. I am whatever the person's name was that they were using, and they were reading. The person wrote all that stuff down, which I believe was the entire thing was actually Tyler Durden, which was actually the ego of whatever his character was. I can't think of his name that Ed Norton played. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I guess Tyler Durden was, you heard that name a lot more than you heard anything else. Tyler Durden, right? So literally you have to realize that. So my point of all this and what Raw's talking about is literally you can be up here. And I have people that tell me, that people live up there too much and they need to be down here. And those people are down here. Even though they know how to transition, they're staying more the balance in the heart, balancing the physical and, the physical and the astral. Instead of moving into and trying to ascend, they're holding themselves partially in all. And this is what he's talking about happened here. Okay. Holding themselves partially in all. It's a balance, and it's hard to achieve, right? It is, because the people in the lower chakras claim you're way up here in outer space all the time. The people who are up there usually look at the other people and say you're way down there. And if you're trying to get somewhere in the middle, both will still claim that you're not there. The people up here are going to say you're down there, and the people down there are going to say you're up there. So when you're in the center area, you're doomed either way. So truly. And that doesn't matter. When you get to the higher level, you're still doomed either way. Do you see? So it doesn't matter. It just depends on, it's literally the perspective of the individual who sees you. They're either going to see you and think you're too far up for them, or they're going to see you and think you're too far down for them, right? George Carlin, the comedian, talked about that when he said, do you notice that depending on how fast a person is driving compared to you determines who you say they are? If you're driving down the freeway and somebody's driving slower than you, what is this guy's problem? This maniac needs to get out of the way. Move over and let me come through. Jesus, that guy's slow. And then if somebody's driving faster than you, they go, Jesus, look at that maniac go. Oh my God, he's driving so fast, he's going to kill us all. It's perspective. You're seeing the world from you. He also stated that, which is also funny, that depending on how close the person is to you personally, determines how big of an asshole they are if they piss you off. If you're sitting here watching television and the guy on the news pisses you off, you're like, Jesus Christ, look at this asshole. That guy's an asshole. You're standing online at a store and the guy in front of you does something to piss you off. You look at the guy next to you and go, Jesus Christ, this guy's an asshole. Okay? Same thing. It's determined by your position and where you think you are in relation to where people are. So people judge people not for who they are, but for who the individual is themselves. We don't see the world the way it truly is. We see the world as we are from our perspective. Do you see? So we do that with everybody. We see them from our perspective. So you judge them according to where you think you are. Do you understand? Do you understand that? That's what people do. People who are aware enough know that, pay attention to that, and accept that. So when you look at other people, you don't judge them and go, that person's below me. That person's better than I am. That person has more knowledge than I do. None of that's actually important. All of that is important to them only, not important to you, but it is because you observe where you are. This is why we tell you to journal. So that's a shot in time, a selfie in time into your brain. If you write everything down, dated. And then when you come back later and read it, you go, wow, okay, that's the way I thought back then. Wow, I completely don't think that way anymore. That's how you see your progress. If you judge yourself by other people, you're always going to find people that are ahead of you, and you're always going to find people that are behind you, and you won't notice anybody at your same level, because even the ones that are at your same level, you're going to either with your ego say, I'm better than that person, or that person's better than me. It's rare that you're going to meet somebody and go, we're exactly the same. Rare. The higher you get, the more you realize we're all exactly the same. The only difference is where that individual resides. But the truth is we are all one. So it doesn't matter. It's not important. But you have people that are pointing at other people. Ego, 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 anger, 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 evil, 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 evil. Care Bear, Care Bear, Care Bear. Too good, too good, too good. Ooh, don't like that. Too sleepy, too sleepy, too sleepy. Those people are caught in the trap. And they're not realizing that all of those is true, but that's exactly where they're supposed to be. You're not looking at where you're supposed to be. You're looking where everyone else is, pointing it out. Because you in some way believe that it's your job to judge them. I'm the one who has to show the world where all of those people are. They know where they are. And if they don't, the only people who don't know where they are the ones who are not paying attention. They're usually always down the lower vibrations because they're focused on the physical. So they don't know where they are. They think that this place is real, and they want power, money, fame, all of that, control, whatever they can get. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Literally, the higher up you get, the more that becomes inconsequential in your mind. It doesn't matter. What matters is, are they trying to better themselves? Are they ascending? Or are they not? That's it. That's all that matters. That is all that matters. They're either trying to ascend or they're not. They're either in service to others and trying to help people, or they're not. And either way, you have to realize that even if they're evil, they're still serving everyone. Everything serves the all, no matter what happens. Evil people doing evil things serves the all. So to get back on point, to go all the way back around, it's a fine line that we walk when people are asking questions, because they're asking a question from their perspective. Okay. And their perspective, depending on what religion they learned first, if they're not aware of that, is going to be slanted towards their religion and their belief system. So that forces the rest of us to not talk about belief systems, because we're not trying to alienate anyone. We're trying to include everyone, because we're trying to include everybody to look at the universe as a whole, as what's going on, and not focus on Starbucks and Walmart and Target and McDonald's and some Pizza Hut or whatever, because that's what the religions are. They're just corporations trying to conquer the world and get as many people into their shop, into their store, buying their product as they can. But they're selling spirituality to do so. So all the people that are working for them have to be pretty legit. Getting back to what Peter said when he was here, I don't know if he still is, Peter GV, when he said many, Christian people are very spiritual. Yes, many people in every religion, most of them in all the religions actually care about your soul and are trying to help you ascend. But they're trying to do it within the bounds of the curriculum that they're being told to use. And some of them believe in that curriculum. There's nothing wrong with that. There isn't. What's wrong is if you start pointing out and realize and thinking they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, but I am the only one that is right. Because that's just not true. Right? It's not, because it's your perspective of something. Just like what I'm saying is my perspective of this. But when you get to a high enough level, you start realizing, and this is what Ra's talking about, that the perspective starts becoming the same. All the people that reach a certain level of knowledge start attaining the exact same knowledge. And then they start speaking the exact same way. The higher up you go in ascension, the more and more the people are saying the same things. And it's not because we're all reading the same things, because I will tell you from experience that there are so many people that I talk to that have not read a third of the religions that I have read on this planet. And they're still have attained the same knowledge and access to the same knowledge that I have without any of the same knowledge that I was exposed to. And that, the more you talk to people, the more you realize is the truth. It doesn't matter the knowledge that you expose yourself to. It matters that if you're trying to ascend and looking up to the knowledge of the universe, because that knowledge is what becomes unlocked to you. And that knowledge is universal. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Let's continue. Right. Cody says, my aunt torments me with the Bible thumping, meaning judgment of everyone and everything. Well, the people that are just locked into a religion do that a lot. And they'll say, you're going to hell because you believe that, right? That the only way that you're not going to hell, and each of the religion has their own story. Like the Hebrews say, the only people that are Jewish are going to heaven. They're the chosen race. Okay, because somebody told them that once 10,000 years ago. So now because of that, we're the chosen race, and all you other people are what we call Gentiles, and you don't get to go to heaven. Weird, because then there's another part of that same religion that says only 144,000 people get to go. And then when you move off of that, the Christians, only people who have water thrown on their head and some guy waves their hand and talks in Latin in front of them, then they get to go to heaven. But if you don't have that water chucked on your head, you don't get to go to heaven. And then there's another part of that religion that says all you have to do is open your heart to this Jesus and accept Jesus into your heart. You don't even actually have to have the baptism. You have to have baptism by the Christ, which is part of that religion of being Christed, which goes back to being Christed by John, of John, not by John, and that. So then when you get to these other religions, they have their version, which will get away from that Christian motif, but then jumps to there is only one God, but this other guy called Muhammad is the prophet. So now, according to the Muslims, Muhammad is the Christ, is the Savior, and Jesus was fake. And if you don't believe me, I'll kill you. Okay, and that's what they are preaching to the zealots. But most of them will go past that in both of those religions and talk about God, and they're not fighting over who their prophet is, because then when you go to the Hebrews, they say both of those guys aren't real, they're fake, and they're not the prophet, and we got the prophets over here. You see? And then when you get to the other religions, they all have the same thing. And then you have multi-gods, multifaceted gods and goddesses. And that's why people are like, all of that's made up, because there's just too many of them. You know, Native Americans had like 100 gods, one for everything, a boulder god, a river god, a tree god, a bird god. But if you go back to the same Mesopotamian scroll, just so you guys know, they had a god that made your elbow, and a god that made your shoulder, and a god that made your nose, and a god that made your right ear, and a god that made your left ear. So everybody who claims that the Mesopotamian scroll is the real scroll, there was a god for everything. God for this tooth, God for that tooth. Every single piece of you and the universe that was created had a god, was specifically designed to create those. Read the scrolls. I have. So everybody's going, well, all these multi-god religions are fake. We got to go to the oldest one on the face of the earth, that one from Mesopotamia. And that one's the one that started everybody else talking about having 100 million gods. They all did. You know why? Because they were written by children. Okay? And that's why that book that became a movie, Children of a Lesser God. Okay. And you should look into that. And that has a lot to do with Christianity too. But the underlining thing that was involved in that, that's why a lot of the people who are skeptics claim that none of this can be true, because it all sounds like it was written for children. It was, and it is. And a lot of it was written by children who were observing and trying to explain it to children. It's very difficult for me to explain to you how the universe works unless you're of a vibration high enough to actually get what I'm saying. So that means that I have to lower my speech pattern down to a certain level for everyone to understand, which includes the majority of the people on this earth who are approximately 12 years of age mentally. Okay. So if I want you to understand what I'm saying, I have to talk to you like a child. But if you notice it, I'm condescending and your ego gets mad and now we're enemies. And then if I don't, I'm patronizing you and I'm talking above your head on purpose because your ego gets offended again and now I'm your enemy. So the point of all of this, and this is what Ra is trying to show here, and you'll see as we go, is that literally, if you get triggered in any way by anything anyone says or does, that's your ego triggering you. You should think those things to be careful so that people don't rip you off. But you shouldn't then take the opposing. The only time you look for a fight is because you are in your egoic mind. You're now down in the orange and red ray chakra. You're in the lower chakra. If you're looking for a fight or think that you have to have one, I got to point this out. I got to be the one telling everybody that person over there is a liar. That person's a thief. That person, you're seeking a fight. That's the lower chakras. You're not residing in your spiritual chakras, because people who do not seek a fight. They see those things. They're aware of those things. And they're also aware that that person is exactly where they're supposed to be. I can't change them. And it's not my job to point out to everybody, because nobody learns. No one listens to people who point things out, because evil people make sure that if you point things out, that they tell people about that, and then they don't want to listen. So they sound like what I just said. That's the bad part. Okay. So they start sounding like me saying those people aren't, and that's why they point it out. So there's a fine line when people like me start talking like this. The lower people can then just turn around and go, see, told you. Look at him. He's doing exactly what he's accusing people of doing, what he's doing. The only reason that Ra is even doing this is to make you aware of it. Ra is not pointing at individuals. Ra is saying that people of a lower, children of a lesser God, are going to be lesser children of a lesser God. Do you see? Not pointing, that one is, that one is, that one is, look over there, that one and that one. Just saying that is where some people reside. That's the difference between those who are pointing at other people and claiming it, and those who see it and go, yeah, some people are there. That's where they are. They're not pointing at people and going, well, that one and that one and that one. And if somebody asks me, point out somebody who you're talking about, I will say, no, you should be aware of it yourself. And if you're not, then you're supposed to become aware of it, because that's what we're all supposed to do. You don't know a thing until you learn a thing. If I tell you don't touch that stove, it's hot, and you've never touched a stove before, you're going to touch the stove faster than if I just left you on your own and didn't even tell you that stove was hot. The percentage of you walking over and touching that stove are a lot less. If you're going over to touch it and then I stop you and say, don't touch it, it's hot, it's because I'm trying to keep you from burning yourself right now. The second I don't watch you, as an adult, I should know. The second I don't watch you, you're now going to touch that stove. So at some point, you're going to burn your hand. And then you know what it means to touch something that's hot, and you don't want to do it anymore. That sucks. Because if I tell you, it's going to make you do it. If I don't tell you, you're going to do it. Either way, it has to be your choice. You have to learn. Do you see? So if I point out every time you want to, after that stove's hot, don't touch it. You'll be like, yeah, I remember that. I'm not doing that again. My hand hurt. It's unfortunate that is the way it is with, look out, that person's going to rip you off. That person's evil. I can say that, but until you have that person be evil and rip you off, you're not going to believe me. Unless you see it as well. And you go, yeah, I saw that. Then I don't have to warn you. But we still do that to each other to try and help protect each other, because those of us who are in service to others have that innate ability in ourselves to realize we have a responsibility to help other people. And so we do that. And so we'll go, I know I don't need to tell you this, but I think that person over there is trying to rip us off. Yeah, I know, I saw that too. Okay, good. As long as we all are aware that that person over there, don't give that person money because they're trying to get money from us. And then other people are going to go, yeah, no. And then there's going to be somebody who's going to, I was wondering, that guy just seems to be trying to get money. No, he is. Don't freaking give him money. Now you're helping somebody. But if you keep pointing that out, that person, and that's all you do, it's because you're seeing them through your own eyes. That's what I would be doing if I was that person, because that's how we judge people. So if you look at somebody and you think that, and this is where people say, let him who has without sin cast the first stone. Literally, when you see somebody and you hear people talk about this, that they're a reflection of you. You think they're doing bad because if you were them in what you see, you would be doing something bad. So that's where our ego serves us. We look at somebody the problem is we also make up stories. We look at a homeless person and the second or any person, you can try this. And people who come in here and see me for the first time, you immediately think up a story in your mind as to who I am, what I'm about, where I live, and how I think. All based on who you are, where you live, what you think. Okay? Not based on anything other than that. This is what Ra's trying to get across. Let's continue here with Ra talking about that in the chakras, where those energies affect you in this plane.
Entity was not of a bellicose nature, but rather during the conflict continued to vibrate in green ray, working with the blue ray energies. The entity who was the one known as Franklin's teacher also functioned greatly during this period as blue ray activator.
Right. I'm going to address what Rick said. He goes, I don't think you ever fully get rid of it. No, you don't. Not in this plane. You can't. Your ego is going to be with you continually until approximately halfway through the sixth density. It just gets less and less prevalent in your daily life. It's still there because it helps to keep you learning. So you can never truly get rid of it. You can't that's why you get some people get obsessed with that ideology, and they hear people here in the West go, check your ego at the door, and they get all mad. Their ego gets bruised. I don't deal with those people because those people don't realize you need your ego because that's what helps you get. No, we know that. What we're saying is we don't want somebody that is egoic, that is stuck in that, being in the room now, because we're not going to put up with it. We don't want that because we're not here to do that. We're here to be away from that. That doesn't mean turn your ego off, but it does mean stop listening to it. Yes, that drives them crazy because they believe we're wrong, because the person who thinks like that is listening primarily to their ego and their thinking mind. And they're judging people by where they are. And they think that they're more enlightened than they actually are. Because if you're enlightened enough, you realize that your ego talks to you 24/7 and you need it. But you're also not supposed to listen to everything it says and say it out loud. Because if you did, you'd rape every woman that you saw if you were a man. You would rape every man that you saw if you were a woman, especially somebody who was good looking. And you would be very impulsive and compulsive at the same time. And you would do whatever comes to your mind. Your ego will tell you all that. You look at somebody and you go, I wonder what that woman looks like naked. You don't say that out loud. You don't go over to her and go, I was just looking at you and imagining what you look like naked. You just don't do that. That's a filter. Okay, the same thing with women. When you look at guys, man, that guy's got a great butt. You imagine what his butt looks like without the clothes on. That's a normal thing to do. But you don't walk over and grab his crotch in the middle of, he's standing with his wife. And I want to see what his junk feels like. I'm going to go over and touch it. You have the filter to not do that. So why is it difficult when you come to a place where we say, check your ego at the door? Why is that now not the same thing as your impulses and your compulsion and your ego that's going to have you get annoyed, pissed off, thinking you're the greatest in the world, brag about everything, or be scared and talk about, oh my God, I'm taking over the world and we're all going to die, or that person's a liar, you don't know what you're talking about, you're fake, I know everything. That's all ego. If you're able to control that instinct in that ego, that doesn't mean you're taking the ego out. But the truth is, to ascension, you're trying to get yourself every time you meditate to a place your ego and thinking mind cannot reach you. Why? If it's I hate those people who say that, check your ego at the door. We need the ego. It's what makes us learn. Really? So do you do any meditation then? Because if you do, and you're not trying to attain that place of peace, you're not doing it right. Look it up. Look up what meditation is trying to teach you. So anybody who then, I don't meditate because that's just for idiots. Ego. I don't have to point out who that is. You guys all know who that is when you see those people. Men, women, boys, girls, whatever you want to call them. Okay. You know that. And if you don't, it's because you haven't learned that yet. That's all part of your ascension. You're going to be all of those things at some point in this particular lifetime, unless you come in completely unveiled and you're aware of it and you're aware of what your ego is doing and you're constantly going, yeah, no, I won't take that advice. I'm not going to go and blow up that building because I'm mad at that person, right? Let's continue.
Not only for its mate, but also in a more universal expression. This entity polarized continuously in a positive fashion in the universal sense while, in a less universal sense, developing a pattern of what may be called karma, this karma having to do with inharmonious relationship distortions with the mate/teacher. 35.2 Questioner, 2 things I would like to clear up. Then Franklin's teacher was his wife. Is this correct? RA, I am RA. This is correct. 35.3 Questioner, secondly, did Franklin place the limitation on his physical body himself? RA, I am RA. This is partially correct. The basic guidelines for the lessons and purposes of incarnation had been carefully set forth before incarnation by the mind/body/spirit complex totality. If the one known as Franklin had avoided the excessive enjoyment of or attachment to the competitiveness which may be seen to be inherent in the processes of its occupation, this entity would not have had the limitation. However, the desire to serve and to grow was strong in this programming, and when the opportunities began to cease due to these distortions towards love of power, the entity's limiting factor was activated. 35.4 Questioner, I would now like to ask for the same type of information with...
Okay, so literally that's what happens. So even if you're up here, but then you start focusing on being down here, power, money, fame, you get pulled down here, because the only way that you can succeed down here is to be down here and focus here on money, power, fame, control. You can't do that from up there. You have to be down here. So if you're trying to stay in between the two, you can do that. You can move back and forth, but you still don't gain access to the higher knowledge because you're still using it to your advantage down here. Do you see? So you get some of the knowledge and then you come back down here and you have limited access to that knowledge and you're using it for your own good down here. And then that's literally a blockage that will keep you just above the bottom. So you're going to have some access to the indigo ray above the green, but you're not going to have total access into the higher planes. Do you see? But you'll have Jedi mind trick and a few other things that you can use to your advantage here. And some people just gain that to have a little bit of spiritualism. Then they act like to the world that they know all this stuff, but they just give you some word salad that confuses the children into believing that you actually know everything that you're saying. And to the children, you just have to talk above their pay grade. So if you have somebody that's just above lizard brain, that's only 11 to 12 to 14 years old mentally, you can quickly fool them into believing that you're the savior or God or somebody good and not be. And they're going to believe you. The difference is, what is the intention of the person who's doing that? Are they helping you to ascend? Or are they keeping you right where you are as long as you're following them and giving them power, money, possibly fame, and control over your life? When you have to realize that, again, don't touch that. It'll burn you. You have to get burned so that you go, that person was evil. Yeah. There's going to be people around you that are going to go, yeah, I tried to warn you, but you didn't want to listen. Because you can't tell somebody who's not wanting to listen. Do you see? You just can't do that. If they're not willing to hear it and they're not aware of it, even if they're blocking it and accepting it, they're still going to go, no, I can see that, there's some good in there. I've done it. I've done it with a few people in my life. People around me know that. And they were like, why did you give that person so much time of your life trying to help them? Because I believe that they can still be helped. Right? Unlike the Luke Skywalker character, only eventually he ran and hid from the entire endeavor because he had a big failure and he assumed that that was like, he got disillusioned with the entire way of life and wanted to destroy it until he started to realize that that was necessary for his own benefit, for his own gain, also for the betterment of the universe. But it took, if you read all the books and saw the movies, you know what I'm talking about. It took a lot for him to realize to be able to then sacrifice. He didn't have to do that, but in that genre, it was always the sacrifice of the physical for the astral. That's why you had Obi-Wan get struck down by evil. Yoda didn't. He just ascended. He was the only one out of everybody that didn't die in combat. That was the mixture of the Viking religion. Lucas was trying to get all of the religions of the world mixed into his storyline for the Jedi way. So you have the Bushido blade, the samurai ideology from Japan, and then you have the Chinese ideology, the Viking ideology of in the sword fighting, it comes from the both of them. In most of the societies of soldiers and sword play. And then you have the magic and the power of the mysticism of the other religions that are more the Celtic ideologies and the Greek and the magic from the Magi and the East, all of that encompassed into the Jedi way. And so the storyline was very middle of the road, not talking about any deity figures at all. Very secular in the ideology, very human-esque in a choice. And the only thing that they said that was any kind of mysticism was the Force itself. And what was that? That goes back to the tree of life that everybody has in most of the religions of the world, where the tree of life, Yggdrasil, is literally that which surrounds and binds all of us together. And the Asians have their version, the Chinese and the Japanese, the Greeks have their version of that, the Egyptians do. Everyone has their version of what that ether, right? Ether that the Greeks talk about. They have their version in their word that means that the energy of the universe, and then it got translated into the modern religions as source energy, God energy, and the Jesus energy, the prophet energy, whatever you want to call it. It's all encompassing. That's why those stories in those movies were so widely accepted by spiritualists, and it became a religion because it's non-denominational and it talks about ascending, but it also shows the zealots of the Order of Light, the Jedi, and how they're not supposed to get married, and they have all these strict rules. And then the opposite, not having any rules and doing whatever you want, do what thou wilt, but harm none, and do what thou wilt, comes from the Celts and all of that. So literally, you have the perfect religion without being a religion, because neither one of those were talked about as a religion at all. They were all talked about a way, the Jedi way. Do you see? So he was incorporating all of the ideologies from all of the religions going back about 10,000 years on this planet and put it all together and called it the Jedi, the light and the dark force. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? And it has become a religion, and it shouldn't, because again, now it's just becoming like everybody else. When it becomes a religion, orthodoxy, then it becomes owned by one person at the high council and or 12 people at a council, and there's always one guy that's the hierarchy at a council, and unless they're completely in the ideology mindset of we are all one, and that's rare to find. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's rare. All right, let's continue.
With respect to Adolf Hitler, you have given a little of this already. It is not necessary to recover what you have already given. But if you could complete that information, it would be helpful. R.A. I am R.A. In speaking of the one you call Adolf, we have some difficulty due to the intense amount of confusion present in this entity's life patterns, as well as the great confusion which greets any discussion of this entity. Here we see an example of one who, in attempting activation of the highest rays of energy while lacking the green ray key, cancelled itself out as far as polarization either towards positive or negative. This entity was basically negative. However, its confusion was such that the personality disintegrated, thus leaving the mind/body/spirit complex unharvestable and much in need of healing. This entity followed the pattern of negative polarization which suggests the elite and the enslaved, this being seen by the entity to be of an helpful nature for the societal structure. However, in drifting from the conscious polarization into what you may call a twilight world where dream took the place of events in your space/time continuum, This entity failed in its attempt to serve the Creator in an harvestable degree along the path of service to self.
See, so here we're talking about Adolf Hitler. And a lot of people are like, Adolf Hitler was the greatest evil on the face of the earth. No, actually, he wasn't. He was confused. He wasn't that evil. He actually kind of went crazy. This is what Ra is saying. I've read his book. He was angry when he wrote that book because he was in prison. He was a corporal and went to prison in the First World War and wrote Mein Kampf when he was a prisoner. So he was angry, and then he finished writing it and published it after he got out of prison. So he blamed one entire race, and which he was half. A lot of people don't know he was an Austrian Jew. He was not of the entire, hierarchy ideology of the super race. He was half. He was a half-breed. People don't realize that about him. So he hated half of his own DNA and blamed them because they were the great evil that screwed everything up. The reason the Nazis, before they were Nazis, the reason the Germans lost the First World War was because of the Hebrews, the Jews, controlling everything in the background. Was he right about them controlling everything? Yeah, they controlled the diamond trade and a bunch of other stuff, and they still do. That doesn't mean that they're evil. That just means that the people who are doing that are involved in business-minded actions, and so therefore they are literally, living in the flesh. But he wasn't advanced enough to not. And then they had him doped up on all kinds of drugs to control him. The people behind the throne that he didn't trust, and they were giving him all kinds of drugs. That's why when you ever see him, if you ever saw Hitler speak, the man was out of his mind, hopped up on all kinds of freaking drugs. He just squeaking and tweaking and tripping on what he was yelling and screaming and pounding on things. And the man was sweating, pouring and wringing with sweat. He was out of his mind on drugs. And he looked like, he was sweating and out of his mind about like Elvis was just before he had died. And the same thing happened. He was all hopped up on a bunch of drugs as well. So the same people behind the scenes were controlling him. And he was so screwed up mentally that you heard Ra talking about that this reality seemed more like a dream, and he was not really present, and it had done damage to him. And he ended up needing to go to a place of healing. And hasn't ascended or descended since then. He's been in the place of healing, trying to fix his soul and get it back to where it was because of how screwed up he got down here doing what he was doing. In the beginning, he had the right mindset and he was trying to help. But then he turned, once he was in prison and everything that happened to him there and torture and who knows what else, raping, who knows, right? The things that happened to him when he was in jail, he just became angry and then focused his anger on what he thought based on his personal belief. Who was the problem? These freaking Jews were the problem. And when I get out of here, I'm going to take over and I'm going to kill those damn Jews off. And I'm going to take over the world the way we should have in the First World War. And the First World War was started by two cousins from the Habsburgs and Hohenzollerns, who were literally, they were vying for control of what they controlled on the earth, and one cousin wanted to be the king, and the other cousin was the king. You see this; they talk about it in the Kingsman, one of those movies. It's about that. It's about somebody in those families trying to kill off their siblings. That's about that time period in the 1930s. During the turn of the war, right after that, going into the 40s and the aftermath of that. If you look back, one cousin tried to assassinate the other cousin, and literally from the different houses, German and English houses, all of those people were related. They knew that back then. People don't know it now. And when they came out with Above Majestic and told you that everybody in Europe, all the countries around the world are all related, everyone was like, conspiracy theory. The people who were actually in those positions are like, whoops. No, that's not real. That's not real. Yeah, no, we're not related. They are related, proven through DNA. Okay? But they're all related. They've been related forever. So one cousin tried to kill the other cousin and broke out into the First World War. That continued on to Adolf Hitler coming to power. He's not part of the races who believe they own the planet, but he got himself into a position by using those people, and they propped him up. That's why a lot of people thought he was the Antichrist, because if you know anything about the prophecy of the Antichrist, the person who you think is the Antichrist that everyone's going to call the Antichrist is actually not really the Antichrist. The Antichrist is someone you'll never get to know. their name because they're in the background pulling strings, doing it today, alive today. Okay, doing it today in the background. And so they're money, power, and control, and they're not the names you think you know. That person is somebody who is using those people. Because if you know prophecy, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then what I'm saying to you just sounds, oh no, here he goes going down that road of a Christian with this Christian prophecy. Okay, so if I triggered you and you think I'm your enemy, it's because you're literally at a lower vibration and you're being triggered because you were programmed to be triggered. It doesn't mean that you are of a lower vibration. It means that's where the trigger has been inserted into your mind, right? They do that with pick a party. You're either a progressive or a conservative. Both of those parties are run by the same people. They want you to choose a side so you don't see they are only one. They're a uniparty. They are the same. They pretend to be on opposing sides of every argument. So there is an argument, and they tell you you're supposed to choose one. Do you see? Because they want you aligned against your neighbors, because over whatever they can get you to fight over, cats and dogs, Star Trek or Star Wars, whatever we can fight over, the team or sports, whatever you watch, soccer, football, baseball, whatever, tennis, you got to be a competition with each other and afraid of each other. And if that doesn't work, race. If that doesn't work, class, whatever they can separate you by. All of it, if they can get you on multiple separations, being afraid of the other and not paying attention to what they're doing because you're too busy looking around at everybody else that are going to come get you, stabbing the guy in the back who's about to stab you in the back while you're trying to stab the guy in front of you in the back. The more that you're doing that, the less you're actually seeing what they're doing. That's what was in those scrolls and controlling your pineal gland from the Anunnaki. That fake race that has a fake name that you guys think is a real entire species, who, if you believe that, believe they came here and created us because they needed gold to put up in their atmosphere. And so we have a bunch of gold, so they only show up every now and then. Why would they not just take all the gold we have here until there's no gold left and not come back and just get rid of all the slaves? That's what I would do. Why? We don't manufacture new gold unless they know something we don't know. Right? So, well, they only take what they need. Really? A conquering army who creates a slave labor force is only going to take what they need and come back later and let their slaves just live on their own for a while until they come back? No, that's not the mindset. That is not the mindset of a conquering nation. Control, power, money, fame is the mindset. Okay? So by its very nature of you believing that is wrong. No alien race created us. This is not a penal colony because there's no cops here overwatching us, and there's nobody coming down here to take every bit of gold that we have on the planet. We have so much gold, we're flaunting it in our teeth and drinking it in drinks. Same thing with diamonds. Diamonds replenish on the earth. They've proven that when they've gone down to the Mariana Trench and harvested the diamonds, and they come back a couple years later and there's brand new diamonds down there. So diamonds are created over and over and over constantly by the earth itself. So gold might be as well. They're not aware of that. I think that it is. But the point of it is, if that's the case, why aren't they duplicating? Smart people would go, what is the process that's creating gold, and why don't we have that on our own planet? Because they claim, well, they mined all the gold off their planet. So now they're going to other planets to get the gold. Well, that's not the answer. That's a big cost. Anybody who is intelligent, who are able to create an entire species to make them your slave labor, would then also be able to go, how about we just duplicate the process that creates the gold from this planet, because it's here creating the gold, and take it back to our planet so that it creates gold again, so we don't have to fly anywhere and pay all that money to train troops, feed them, house them, clothe them, ship them, and then go over here to forced labor to buy us, to get some more gold so we can fly back home. And then we have all these troops sitting around doing nothing until we need them again. Do you see? Well, because it's easier just to go from planet to planet and do all that. No, that's a movie. That's television. It's not cheaper to do that. That's a big, huge cost to have a campaign of war. Far bigger than just creating the product on your own land. Okay, I mean, that's the truth of it. If you have a half a brain, you know that. It costs you 1/10 of the money to cook your own food at your house than it does to go and buy one at a fast food restaurant. Just saying. 1/10 of what it costs you to go out and get in your car, pay how much it costs to run that car, to literally pay for the insurance on the car, the gas, the oil, the brakes, wear and tear on your car, to drive to a drive-through, to pay someone else to cook all that food, to pay someone else to slaughter the animal and bring it there and get it prepared or whatever, go out and slaughter the plants that you're going to eat, harvest the plants, bring it to you, prepare it, and hand it to you, and then you eat it and come back home or come back home and eat it. If you were to get that shit or grow it in your own garden and create it and eat it yourself, it would cost you less than 1/10. So why would you go, I have to go and kill the people at Taco Bell and force them to give me a taco? Give me a taco or I'm going to beat you into submission and maybe murder a couple of people. Why is that easier? Well, it's more convenient for some people who don't know how or don't want to cook their own food. Okay. That only works if you perpetuate itself by doing that. Okay. A conquering nation has to be a conquering nation because they don't do anything besides conquer. And therefore they have to island hop from place to place to place and keep conquering because they only consume what they have in front of them. And then when they're done, they need to go somewhere else and get it. Okay. That's why people want to conquer the world, because they want what other people have. They don't want to build this shit themselves. Do you see that? This is the mindset. So when you get locked into the 3D, you can't build that stuff yourself. You have no creative ability. So you go and harvest it and force them other people to do it for you. That's not a wise race that is ascending. That is a three-dimensional race of beings who happens to have a little bit of technology. So if you believe that the Anunnaki are real, they're the Russians or the Chinese or the Americans if you don't like us. That's all they are. They're just somebody who lives over there. No different than we are, except they live over there instead of over here. No different. Okay? And you have to realize that mindset, that if they're coming here in ships to rip off what we got and force us to force labor, that means they are us from another planet. That's it. They're not gods. They're not malevolent in any way. They are just thugs that are running a government, just like the thugs that are running every government on this planet. And they're just going and stealing shit from other people because they can. They are not, they didn't create us. Because if they had that technology, they could create everything they would need to save themselves, and they wouldn't have to go and rape and pillage. Since they don't, and that's what the people think they're doing, those people are nobody but another country, another group of humans, just like us, or any other race that's third dimensional that happens to live over there and we haven't seen their planet yet. That's it. No different than the people who were living in the United States of America and Canada, the North American continent, to the Europeans before they found this place. No different. They're just people that live over there until they sailed over here and said, hey, what's over here? There's more to this world than we thought. Oh, look, guess what was over here? People that were not as advanced as them. So what did they do? Rape, pillage, murder, and put them into slavery. No different. So the mindset of the conquering nations in this world is the mindset of this Anunnaki, the supposed race that created us. Therefore, by logic and reasoning, they are no different than us. They are us in different bodies. No different. So they're just third dimensional race of beings that are island hopping, attacking people, and preying on the weak or the less technologically advanced for their own benefit. That's it. That's it. Eventually, our technology will reach theirs, and if they do come back, we'll have the same technology as them or enough to fight them off and capture their technology to quickly advance, like the Chinese did and the Japanese did to the rest of the world when they showed up with ships and guns, and they were smart enough to make deals with them until they got them, and then they needed their gunpowder. That's why they went there, for their explosives, and so they started selling the gunpowder and then started looking at their weapons and started making their weapons, and they went from a backwoods Bushido country in the Japanese and Chinese ways to global powers within a generation. It's exactly what the human race will do if the Anunnaki is who they say they are and they're overdue to come back. When they come back here, we're going to see that if they haven't already, and we're going to go, okay, we'll make a deal with you, just don't kill us. By the way, let us see what you got, and we're going to look at what they got, whether they like it or not, and start reverse engineering it. And then we're going to start making our own shit. So the next time they come here, we're going to be ready for them because we're going to advance. No, this is where they were when they got here. So we got to catch up to that and advance too. So when they come back, we are advanced enough. And when they do come back, we're going to blow them out of hell. And then we're going to go back to their planet. We write it in all of our movies. And we're going to attack them and do the same thing to them that they're doing to us. Why? Because it is in the nature of people who live in the flesh in this world. Why do they fight? Because it's in their nature. Okay. And that's just the way things are in 3D. It has nothing to do with anything. And you're not ascending, because if you were, you would go, okay, now we're not going to attack you. You're not going to attack us because we'll kill you if you come here. You're going to leave us alone. And if you bring more people, we're just going to blow everybody up. That's somebody who's more ascended. I'm not going to come get you, but if you come back, we're going to blow you up. Leave us alone or we'll blow you up. You're going to have some people that go, we got to take it to them first before they do it. Kill all of them. That's 3D thinking and ego. Let's continue.
Thus we see the so-called insanity which may often arise when an entity attempts to polarize more quickly than experience may be integrated. We have advised and suggested caution and patience in previous communications and do so again, using this entity as an example of the over-hasty opening.
Scallions, to answer Denise said, I don't know shallots, so all I know is scallions. They're both an onion. Okay. One is the bulb at the bottom and the leaf, and the other one is the stick that's kind of round. But they're both onions. One's a green onion, and so shallots are different than scallions, but they're almost identical in what they do. They're a form of onion. There's many different forms of onion, and the big onion that grows is the root right at the bottom. But the scallions and the shallots are the stalk that grows out of the ground. That are a different kind of onion that grow up, and they eat the leaves instead of the bulb at the bottom. And some with the scallions, I think it's the scallion, one of the two, the shallots, I think, you do eat the bulb and the leaves, and the other one you just eat the leaf because it really is just a root and leaves. But they're all just onion. They're just a different type of onion. Some people know the one or the other depending on what grows in the country that they live in. America, we get stuff from all around the world. Most places these days that are modern get this stuff from all around the world with trade.
Of polarization without due attention to the synthesized and integrated mind/body/spirit complex. To know yourself is to have the foundation upon firm ground. 35.5 Questioner, thank you. An important example, I believe. I was wondering if any of those who were subordinate to Adolf at that time were able to polarize in a harvestable nature on the negative path. RA, I am RA. We can speak only of two entities who may be harvestable in a negative sense, others still being in the physical incarnation, one known to you as Herman, the other known, as it preferred to be called, Himmler. 35.6 Questioner, thank you. Earlier we discussed Abraham Lincoln as a rather unique case. Is it possible for you to tell us what the orientation was and why the fourth density being used Abraham's body, and when this took place with respect to the activities that were occurring in our society at that time? RA, I am RA. This is possible. 35.7 Questioner, would it be of value for the reader to know this in your estimation? RA, I am RA. You must shape your queries according to your discernment. 35.8 Well, in that case I would like to know the motivation for this use of Abraham Lincoln's body at that time. RA, I am RA. This shall be the last full query of this session as we find the instrument quite low in vital energies. The one known as Abraham had an extreme difficulty in many ways and, due to physical, mental, and spiritual pain, was weary of life but without the orientation to self-destruction. In your time, 1853, this entity was contacted in sleep by a fourth density being. This being was concerned with the battle between the forces of light and the forces of darkness which have been...
All right, I'm going to let this play while they're talking about Abraham Lincoln and run over and close the blinds because it's starting to get dark. Okay, so I'll be right back while Raw is talking about. So it was 1853 when the entity was Abraham Lincoln decided that it wanted to go home and couldn't do what it needed to do. So very soon before he was supposed to get shot, right? Because he got shot when Right? Does anybody know the answer to that? Let's continue. I'll be right back.
Waged in fourth density for many of your years. This entity accepted the honor/duty of completing the one known as Abraham's karmic patterns, and the one known as Abraham discovered that this entity would attempt those things which the one known as Abraham desired to do but felt it could not. Thus the exchange was made. The entity, Abraham, was taken to a plane of suspension until the cessation of its physical vehicle, much as though we of RA would arrange with this instrument to remain in the vehicle, come out of the trance state, and function as this instrument, leaving this instrument's mind and spirit complex in its suspended state. The planetary energies at this time were at what seemed to this entity to be at a critical point, for that which you know as freedom had gained in acceptance as a possibility among many peoples. This entity saw the work done by those beginning the democratic concept of freedom, as you call it, in danger of being abridged or abrogated by the rising belief and use of the principle of the enslavement of entities. This is a negative concept of a fairly serious nature in your density. This entity, therefore, went forward into what it saw as the battle for the light, for healing of a rupture in the concept of freedom. This entity did not gain or lose karma by these activities due to its detachment from any outcome. Its attitude throughout was one of service to others, more especially to the downtrodden or enslaved. The polarity of the individual was somewhat, but not severely, lessened by the cumulative feelings and thought forms which were created due to large numbers of entities leaving the physical plane due to trauma of battle. May we ask if this is the information you requested, or if we may supply any further information? 35.9 Questioner: if there are any further questions, I will ask them in the next period, which should occur in about 4 days. I do not want to overtire the instrument. I will only ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact. RA, I am RA. All is well. I leave you, my friends, in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai.
Okay, so let me stop sharing that on the screen here, or I can just leave it up so that way I'm not on the full screen. Right? So, literally, talking about Abraham Lincoln and what was going on, that was a walk-in, and that person came in to take the place of the other person who was very tired and couldn't continue. That doesn't happen very often, but the longer a place goes stuck, the more that people are tired from being here for as long as they have been. Some people don't know it, and they're just like, something's wrong, and I'm just tired. I've been here for a long time. It's because we have. The people that are here have been here for a very long time, just living over and over and over and over. But then you have this certain people that you see out there that seem to be more motivated to help people. Those are people that probably already had the ability and do have the ability to ascend. I was thinking the same thing, Cassie, when she was talking about with the potatoes with the shallots in there. But as long as they're not too watery, right? Rick said the watery version of mashed spuds. I like my mashed potatoes thicker. I don't like them watery. My father liked them kind of watery, almost like a soup. I like them thick. I do the same thing with like the dressing, what we call dressing, for a turkey. When I make that, I make it drier than most people like it really. No, it just depends. Like my family like it moist but not too dry. I like it moist but not too dry, but I don't like it very moist. A lot of people like it really mushy and moist, so it's almost like mushy peas or mashed potatoes. I love mushy peas better than regular peas. I like the mashed peas better. I always have. Some people like, no, apparently it goes back to when I was a kid. When I was a baby, my mother said that she would feed me the mushy peas and I would eat that and loved it. And if she tried to give me something else, I would spit it out. But I loved the mushy peas, so it was rare that I would eat other things because I love the mushy peas. Well, I just love that. I love that taste. I still do. People are like, I don't know. I don't like the consistency. I like it. That same consistency is the same as mashed potatoes when they're thicker. But I love making mashed potatoes. I always make it with garlic and some chives. And then I put onion in it, or onion powder in it. So I'll put some shallots or something in it. We call that country potatoes over here. If you use red potatoes, which we call new potatoes, instead of the Idaho brown, and you leave the skins on and mash those up, and then you add all that other stuff to it. We call that country potatoes over here, and love that stuff. It's like potato salad. It's the same way. You throw those onions in it, and, right? Yeah, Mushy like grits. Yeah, I like grits too. I like grits thicker. So if you fry the grits and so that they're a little bit drier, I love that. I'll throw butter and syrup on that to give it a little bit more moisture. But I like it to start out dry so that I put the stuff on there. Love that stuff, right? Love grits. Love all of that. Malto oatmeal. I love my oatmeal thick as well. I'll put a little bit of butter in it. And like I just had some this morning I take Raisin Bran, put it in a bowl, throw a little bit of butter on top of it. So put some peanut butter on that, pour some sugar-free syrup in that mix, and then put the oatmeal mash, or what you guys call mash over there in the UK, or porridge. It's the same thing. We call it oatmeal. It's still oatmeal. It's oats. Same thing. They pack haggis, but with haggis, they have the oats and barley, and then they pack meat and spices with that together and make a paste out of it and shove it in a sheep's stomach and cook it. That stuff's good too, by the way. That's just an oatmeal that has meat mashed up in it in our minds here in America. So yeah, I love that stuff too. So yeah, so you guys call it porridge or mash over there, and we call it oatmeal over here. Just a different version of the same thing. I like the Irish oatmeal, which is the cut is a thicker cut. It's not mashed into or baked into the little open flour, popped like they do with the corn, where they make the corn cereals. I like it to where you have to cook it longer and then mash it. And some people don't like that. And I would buy a can from Ireland of the Irish oatmeal here in America, and I forgot what they called it in Ireland, but I loved that. And I used to eat that all the time, and people would be like, "This is not oatmeal. No, this is true oatmeal. That's the oats that have been chopped up and that people cooked around the world. And only in America did they take the whole oat, the whole wheat grain, and pop it open by cooking it. That's what they did when they did the like what we call corn flakes. That's just a dried piece of corn that they cooked until heated up in an oven until it pops open. And then they just serve it to you. Now they have everything is manufactured, so it's not even that. Now they're taking synthetic corn and making it into a paste and shaping it and then cooking it. And so you think what you're eating is a corn pop or a corn flake, when in truth you're eating mash that they've cooked into a flake for you. Most people don't know it. I love to put milk in there too. I'll do that with my cereal as well. I'll put milk, butter. Sometimes, like my buddy Paul learned that if you got some good oatmeal and you just put butter and syrup and milk in it, it tastes like pancakes because it's the same. Really, it's oats. It's the same. It's the same oat wheat that is being used when you make flour out of it and then cook it into a cake. So if you make the oatmeal, it's just a little more grainy, but it's the same thing. My father used to take potatoes and make potato cakes. He would take mashed potatoes when they were left over, and he'd put them into a little cake and then fry it in a pan and then serve it to us. And we, they do the same thing with potatoes, where they shave it off, grating it, and then they cook it. And we call that hash browns here in the United States. It's just mashed potato and not mashed. They just take a potato and scrape it in a cheese grater and then pack it onto itself and cook it on a pan, fry it. And that's where you end up with the same thing. So yeah, a lot of that just comes from being poor from Ireland, coming over to America and having to figure that shit out. Now my mom's coming over here and going to sit down and look at me at the table because I'm talking to you guys. So now she's going to sit down in the chair, which is what she does sometimes, and just stare at me and start playing with the mail and start handing it to me, which is my cue that it's time for me to either get up and go and have her sit down or just end the show. Since we finished the lesson today, we finished this entire session, I'll just go ahead and end the show today so that I can go and put mom back in the living room watching television because she heard me talking and now she's coming in to sit here at the table and stare at me. and she'll do that. And like I said, she'll start playing with stuff over here, and it'll mess up the camera, and she'll start handing me mail. And so I'm going to just go. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys either tomorrow if Jacqueline's going to do something. But last week she did it. It wasn't on the air. So we'll see if what she's going to do. So if not, and she doesn't do something on the air, then I'll see you guys next Friday. When I come back to do the Law of One. Okay. So you guys have a great night, have a great weekend, have a great day. If you're on the other side of the prime meridian, like Rick and Rebecca over there in the area down under, you guys are already tomorrow in the morning, right? It's 10, 11, 12 now, almost noon there, I think, over there. Yeah, it's almost noon for you guys, I think, over there. And if you're in England, like Peter and who else is here? Pamela's here. So if you're over and you guys are in Ireland in the UK time, then it's way late for you because it's almost midnight or after that now, isn't it? Right? 6, 7, 8. So you're at almost 2 a.m. for you or 1 a.m. for you over there, whatever that time is. I'm trying to do it quickly in my head. So again, this is Orion Rising. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. All right, guys, have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'll see you either tomorrow or the next week. I love you guys. Hopefully our conversation taught you something today, and hopefully you can give me some feedback that teaches me something, not that you haven't already in the chat, because that's the way a conversation goes. All right, guys, I'll see you guys later.